So there's this concept, particularly here, where people expect you to be an all-rounder, to do everything well, and you're sort of coached into it from school. But one of the pieces of advice that somebody gave me when I was, growing in business was like, focus heavily on your strengths and know them very well. So for me, I'm a great storyteller. I know how to build relationships. I know how to analyze business models and create value for everybody, right? And build new business models, right? Like I have a strategy head, right? And I can execute, right? I can sort of, I'm not gonna be the one who does the job, but I'll be the one who leads the execution, and I can bother people, I can disturb. You know those people, yeah. I can disturb. So I just know that's my role on any team. If the team doesn't need that, then, I don't need to be there. And that's what gives me the greatest confidence, is that in my own sphere, I'm good. I don't code. I don't code. I don't pretend like I can code. And there are other things I can't do. Like I'm not really an operations guy. You know what I mean? Yes, I can make sure that the execution gets done, but I'm not really the guy who's like I usually need to have somebody who's like Scrum Master, essentially, right? Every day they're like checking everything. Yeah. But my job is more like, there's a problem. Okay, let's think our way around this problem and continue. That's my job, right? Either by leveraging relationships or thinking innovatively about how to solve the problem. And then I still have a legal brain. So yeah. I can read contracts, I can get around laws, I can write laws, I can draft. So all those things help quite a bit when it comes to the job. And I'm just very good at what I do. And every day I try to be better at what I do. I don't worry about the stuff I'm not good at. I just partner for that. So I think when you have that, your life is a lot easier when it comes to partnerships. Because you know what you bring to the table.
Your experience at Andela,
yeah,
and your experience at Flutterwave, how much did you have to reinvent yourself? Because pretty much what you did for Andela is not necessarily the same with what you did.
No, it was very, very different.
Yeah.
I mean, to be very honest, the work I did at Andela helped me quite a bit with getting Flutterwave done. Because Flutterwave really required somebody that had high visibility. Okay. People looked at as credible. I mean, banks are not letting you into their DB, except they know that you're a credible person. So haven't done the stuff with Andela, Mark Zuckerberg coming, all that. That gave me quite a bit of credibility. So that I used that to do it. But I think the biggest thing is the biggest switch for me. Actually, in the switch between Andela and Flutterwave, I actually went to Arkansas for like 4 months just to study payments.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. 4 months.
Arkansas, what happened
Arkansas?
Arkansas?
So Little Rock, Arkansas actually turns out to be like, in many ways, kind of the birthplace of payments, like modern payment systems, right? Because AT&T started to do their research work around kind of modern core banking systems and national payment rails in Arkansas. So a lot of the processing that happens in payments actually happened in Arkansas at one time. So I had to go there to like understand what was going on, how it worked, all the different things, all the different processors. This is at a very like deep level. So I understood the business very well after those 4 months in Arkansas. So that helped us quite a bit, because when we were talking to the technical people in the banks, they'd be like, okay, this guy really understands, has a deep understanding of what we're dealing with. And so we can trust him with our systems. But I mean, there is no substitute for deeply understanding what you're building and the industry and the context around it. So every time I've had to build a new business, I go to a level of depth that my team is often like, this guy, you're like a bit obsessive, It's almost like preparing for a new movie,
Yeah.
Like you have to be a different kind of actor. So that's what helps me quite a bit in my own work. Because to build trust with people, you kind of have to know how they're thinking, right?
Definitely.
And you have to put yourself in their shoes. So I always made sure that I knew enough that, I put myself in the shoe of the other guy and try to understand what are his competitive pressures, what will make him move, what matters to him, and that way I'm able to craft a value proposition that makes sense for him.
So how does that process typically happen for you on every venture?
It's a lot of work. So, I mean, a lot of it is, we first of all start out with like the core texts. Like every discipline has like core texts, like the one book that you have to read to understand how the whole thing works, right? So I always start off with, I'll read that core text, then a lot of conversations. Like I'll go talk to people. Sometimes, depending on the industry, I would intern, right? So I'll go sit down at a place. Sometimes I would practice, right? Like my own business, like for example, at venture capital. So actually the firm, I started like angel investing in 2017.
Okay.
Right? So like properly, right? So I did a few transactions. You know, I structured a deal that got us some money to invest in more companies. So by 2018, it had become sort of like a side hustle. So when I knew I was going to leave Flutterwave, you know, I started to, you know, we had put like formal rails on what we're doing. By 2019, end of 2019, I did the Move deal. That was my first time taking a deal end to end. By 2020, we raised the fund. I did it on Angel List. We raised $10 million. Then we're doing it again. And I'm learning, like you're always learning. You're always learning. So you really have to, I spend a lot of money on my education. I mean, just in keeping with my parents, it's like, there's no amount of money I cannot spend on learning, yeah. But it's always, I think as you grow, it becomes harder to find like a course. Like these days, if I want to learn about something, it's a lot harder for me to learn by like taking a course. Like usually I'll have to read a book and then reach out to people in that industry or go to a conference where like people who are in the industry. Because I learn a lot faster by talking to experts. Because I've built like quite a number of mental models around how things generally work. So if I talk to an expert and I ask this question, that question, it's very easy for me to figure out the unit economics of a business and the context. It probably fits in some sort of model. So you just like, okay, this is how this one works. Okay, fine. I can now work with this.
Can you share some of those models with us? I know Charlie Munger has mental models. I would like to.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of my models are self-made.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
They're not.
I mean, someone once asked Charlie Munger. Someone once asked Charlie Munger that how do you choose people to head a company? You know, and his answer was, I find someone that has done it before.
That's a great.
So it's as simple as that, right? And the person was like, why don't you raise people? He said, no, someone can do that, but I.
that's my own way. So I think the first model of doing business in Africa is if you build a business and no one's making money apart from you, it's a bad business. Like if your users are not making money, it's a bad business. Don't do it in Africa. Do it somewhere else. You know, like your business has to be somebody's business. Right? So that's like a core.
I think, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, your business has to be somebody's business. So, I mean, with Andela, right, like it's like our business was getting these young people to work with companies. So, and their business was putting out outputs. But even for the young person who we're working with, they wanted to get some income, right? So everybody was aligned. Flutterwave, very obvious, right?
Yes.
Somebody's making money on the other side. So Move, which is our other business, like the driver, right? The guy wants to buy an asset. He wants to pay off. So your business is his business. People take their businesses seriously. You get what I'm saying? Because that's how they eat. So if you want to build a business, make it somebody's business.
Interestingly, I saw a statistic yesterday that in Nigeria, over 80% of the workforce is self-employed.
Yeah, I believe that. It's one of the things. Another thing I look at is like, if you want to get somebody to do something, you have to give them a reason to. Yeah. And that's something I've learned. So when I mean, like I said, you know, why did Fora fail? It failed primarily because NUC had no incentive. And it's not corruption. I'm not saying that it's not corruption. It's just like, if I had gone to them and I said, look, if you do this, you know, for every student who enrolls on this course, NUC gets $10. Like, I think it would have gone through. But obviously, I didn't have the wisdom at that time to do that, right? But that's a mental model I have. So I always ask, like, what's in it for you is the first question to answer before you even get there. And you try and structure it in an institutional way.
So your rules kept evolving, right? From Andela, you were more like an entrepreneur, ground up, trying to sell to investor. From Flutterwave, you were more like an influencer, builder, because you had proven yourself. Your credibility had grown. So obviously they wanted to work with you. Then now
you still had to build trust with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, banks are not easy to just get into like that. You had to. I remember then I was in Y Combinator. I mean, the most important thing with the banks was that they love status symbols. So, okay, that's the guy who brought Mark Zuckerberg to Nigeria. That's your calling card, right? But then there are other things, like we're in Y Combinator, Visa, MasterCard are investors. My chairman was the former president of Visa. You know, so I had all the calling cards. I'd fly them out to Silicon Valley. You know, I came every weekend. I was in Nigeria. I was in San Francisco raising money, but I would go there Sunday to Tuesday night, take a Tuesday night flight, get to Nigeria on Thursday, do team meeting on Friday, and hang out with bank CEOs and EDs and
over the weekend.
Wow, that was intense. Yeah, I did that for like 18 weeks.
Wow.
Right.
A lot of work.
In fact, I actually had a stroke.
How did that affect your health?
No, it was crazy. I actually had a stroke towards the end of 2017.
Wow.